The
Hey, hey,
Bucks. Hey, hey, how are you today, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great, Scoop. I mean, these games, I'm just getting like, this is the time of the season where we start getting news from NFL camps. This year, the reporters are there. So it's kind of like a bit of a pacifier. Nothing major is happening. I mean, hearing Tom Brady's out there in a helmet is like big news right now for those of us who are starting to understand that the NBA season will eventually be over and our full focus will be NFL.
Aaron Rodgers, go to the Broncos.
Oh, that's where you'd like him to fit, right? This Aaron Rodgers story is, there's always one story. Last year it was what can Tom Brady do on a new team, moving during COVID, all these things. This Aaron Rodgers story is interesting because we don't really know the root cause of the problem. We know there's an issue, but he hasn't put out there really what he wants. He hasn't said, I want to be traded. They've offered him a new contract. He doesn't really want it. So it's really like we're all on pins and needles. Whereas I think it's masking the real conversations like what's it going to be like for the New England Patriots? Will Cam Newton be the starting quarterback? How's Sam Darnold going to adjust in his new home in Carolina? There's so many narratives that I want to try to feed into that I'm just not getting right now. It's getting way too much. And so let's talk about the narrative that I woke up with this morning. I'm going to ask you this very important question, Scoop. Will the Nets sweep? Do you see a broom coming out in this series against the Milwaukee Bucks?
No.
Ooh. No sweep.
No.
I think the kids want rest and they're going to want to sweep.
I think when you look at the Mavericks Clippers series, it started out 0-2 on the Clippers side. And I think that when you look at what the end result was, the Clippers came out swinging. Now, granted, the Nets are a second place team in the regular.
And granted, the Clippers have more talent around them than Giannis does in Milwaukee. And before I brought you on, Giannis is shooting 2 for 10 from the free throw line in this series. He averaged 53%, which is now under 50%. What's gotten into Giannis's head, and my concern is if they don't win tonight, if they lose tonight, I'm calling a sweep. No matter what, because at this point, it becomes a mental game. They're at home. Okay, this could help. But what's going to be the difference maker? Is it Drew Holiday? Who is going to be the difference maker when Giannis is kind of not at his strongest?
Well, one thing I'll mention is this. The last time the Nets went up 2-0 in a series, they lost the third game to the Boston Celtics in Game 3. That is a horse of a different color as it relates to the talent that the Nets are playing in the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Celtics. But I think in this series, what you're seeing is I felt like Game 1 was a fill-out game. James Harden playing only 43 seconds. But I'll add this. I think that when you look at the Nets and the Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo can't do it by himself, and the rebounding department was lacking, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm going to agree with you there. He can't do it by himself. But when it comes to an average like 2 for 10 in this series from the free throw line, and he's getting fouled, he's missing out on valuable opportunities to just get those points. I mean, the other night you can't even get above 86 points, and it's all doing the math here. It's all really adding up. You've got contributors putting up 4 points in a major game. So I look at the total right now, which I think is kind of high because of what we saw the other night. The total at Bovada for the Nets-Bucks game is 233.5.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I just feel as though home court is the Nets' advantage. I think that the Bucks are going to have to step it up. But I'll add this. I also think that the reason why there were so many expectations for the Bucks to do exceedingly and abundantly well is because of how dynamic they were in their first round series against the Heat, beating them in sweep. And I think that when you look at this series with the Bucks, and the answer to your initial question, it's going to be a combination of not just Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, but also Forbes. Bryn Forbes is going to be a big portion of their supporting cast in the same way that you have guys like Mike James as well as Bruce Brown for Brooklyn. And I think that it's not just their starting lineup, it's the supporting cast that's going to have to step up in this game. And the rebounding department. In Game 2, out rebounded the Nets by only 2 rebounds. And this is a team in the Nets where people said, oh, well, they don't have any big men. Okay, they don't have big men, but they only lost the rebounding department by 2 count rooms.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You know, how much worse would this be for the Bucks if James Harden was playing?
Right.
I mean, think of it, look at it this way. So if you're thinking this series is not going to be a sweep, you can tell me first how many games it goes, and is tonight the game that the Bucks win at home?
I think tonight's the game that the Bucks win at home. I still do think it's the Nets in series. I think that when you look at the every expert as it relates to betting odds, they've all said that the Nets are the favorite to go to the finals. So I think even if we play the game of, as our parents would say, playing the game of semantics of what it is, at the end of the day, the Nets are still going to win it all.
Of course. So are the Nets going to win it in 5? The Nets going to win it in 6?
I say 5.
Okay, so what you're saying here is that you truly only believe that the Bucks can give one game.
Yes.
Okay, this could be the game tonight. How do you feel about the total points at Bovada? It is plus 125 for the Nets to take the win and minus 145 right here for the spread. I mean, for the win on the Bucks. 233.5. I've made some great decisions over the past 2 weeks, but I will tell you, I've been picking winner properly, but definitely not picking the totals properly at all, making me feel like I'm pushed to go for an under because my last 3 over picks did not go over. And then you get into this situation where you're kind of like jinxing yourself. But I do say this. If you strongly believe that the Bucks are going to take the win tonight, to me, I think the only way they're going to take the win is by this being a really high scoring game. So that would lead me to believe that you're taking the Bucks to the over.
Yes.
So that's the only way they win. I mean, the Nets are not going to put up 86 points and lose by 30 and walk away. The Nets are going to fight through an overtime or 2.
I agree with the Will. He said plus 240 over. I think it's going to be the over for Milwaukee with the win.
Okay. So that's what we're going with right there. Don't forget, you can use my promo code at Bovada. It's Lisa250BV. Late game, we got the Clippers up against the Jazz. The Jazz lead the series right now 1-up. Total is 10 points lower. It's 223.5 right here, plus 125 for the win for the Clips, and minus 145 for the Jazz.
Donovan Mitchell's been playing out of his mind ever since he returned to the playoffs in Game 2 in Round 1 against the Memphis Grizzlies, and I hope that that's going to, or rather, I think that's going to continue.
Yeah.
I guess tying the Utah Jazz record for most 40-point games in franchise history behind Karl Malone. It took, Donovan Mitchell out of 28 or 38 games in order to do it. But I still think that the Clippers are a resilient team, and I think that they're going to go back into the lab and do what they need to do. Mm-hmm. I don't fear the Jazz like I fear the Clippers. And I think they're going to tie it up tonight.
So they tie it up tonight. Let's move over into the weekend. The Sixers-Hawks series gets interesting with the Embiid injury. Just like we saw the Lakers would have been a totally different rally if they had Anthony Davis. Mm-hmm. I don't feel the same, though, about the Nets, Scoop. How about you? Like, without James Harden, without Kyrie, as long as it's only one piece missing, I'm not worried about them at all. If it were 2, I'd be a little suspect.
Yeah, because if it were 2, it would be like last season when Kyrie went out with the shoulder injury. It was no Durant. Right. You know, the added piece this season is Harden, and in my opinion, Harden is an added luxury. It's literally, Harden is like the movie Ferris Bueller. Remember when his friend Cameron had the car on the top of the house, like his dad's car, and he ran it off the glass window? Like, that's James Harden.
Yeah, and James Harden really did hold them over at the beginning of the season. As soon as he made the move, he made an impact. He made an impact at a time where KD was injured, Kyrie was in and out. So it was so perfectly timed. And also it worked well because they got used to playing without that whole team. The cohesiveness is not a must for the Nets, but it's a little bit different for the Sixers, even though the Sixers have done well and thrived at times because they do have enough role players. But when you look at this series now, tied up 1 apiece, how many games do you think the Sixers-Hawks series is going to go, Scoop?
6.
It's a great series. I mean, we need 1 or 2 of them to last a little longer so we get a little bit more out of it, right? So you're calling 6 in this one. Tomorrow night, the game will be in Atlanta. Total points, 224.5. Who do you say is getting the win in this one tomorrow night?
Atlanta.
I do too, especially if Embiid's not playing. I think this is a good throwaway game. I don't think the Sixers have to really be any concern. They're going to be down by 1. They're going to go back home. They'll probably be able to get Embiid back, hopefully. So I'm with you on that one. The late game tomorrow night. What happened to the Denver Nuggets? And boy, the Phoenix Suns have been a tear this whole entire season. And now here they are leading the series 2-0.
I posted it in my column today over at Valley Sports. When you look at Nikola Jokic, he can't do it by himself. The NBA's reigning MVP. Michael Porter Jr. is still playing hurt. He got hurt in game 1. He hurt his back, and his back has been an issue ever since he came.
Huge issue.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think when you look at the Nuggets in game 3, I think you're going to have to see more Will Barton III step it up. He had a block in the game. He's their only real lockdown defender. But it's not just Chris Paul you got to worry about. It's not just Devin Booker. You got to worry about DeAndre Ayton, who said at the beginning of the season, that his goal was to be a top two-way center in the league.
He's been incredible through the playoffs.
Yeah, he's been playing his tail off. Game 1, 20 points, 10 rebounds.
Yeah.
Game 2, he got in a bit of foul trouble. He only had 15 points, 10 rebounds. But what helped him, I'll add, is this. You had the backup center, Dario Saric, former Sixer, step it up in his absence, and I think got an alley-oop, got a fast break alley-oop off Chris Paul. Chris Paul didn't turn the ball over at all, and I think that's also been the biggest difference maker for the Phoenix Suns. I almost feel like the Suns were an opening act in the bubble last year. They were like the opening act.
Sure,
Yeah.
you are correct.
And
But they really continued it throughout this season with how they played and how well they played together. And they've gone somewhat unnoticed, even still in these playoffs. And when you talk about on the other side with the Nuggets too, Gordon has to step up as well. Just a lackluster performance. You heard the speech from their coach after the game.
Michael,
really, he does not play. When he said, you know what, we're going to look things over, I'm going to find 5 players to play. Like, I was like, oh, you're throwing your starters. But I also hear on the other side that he is also a player's coach, and they really do bond with him well. So he's emotional. I mean, it was kind of a disgrace the way they left this going, and they're down 0-2. Can they pull out? I mean, I don't know if they can. I don't know how many games they'll win in this series. I don't think any more than 2.
So when I was up till about 7 this morning following my story, and I put online in my article where I said, while Denver is known for, I learned this last night, Mile High oysters and peaches and craft beer, the Nuggets are looking for some sort of home cooking in game 3.
Ooh, well done there with the writing. I really like the delivery on that. I would like that art. I would go and read that article. That is delightful. I like how you tied something in from the city. It was like you just took us on an adventure on the Travel Channel while talking sports. Very well done.
But I'll say this, and I want to talk to you about your 30 days as well on YouTube. I've been reading about it. I have to catch up. But what I'll say is, when you look at the Nuggets, the advantage that the Suns had in game 1 and game 2 is the home crowd. 16,000 capacity. Yeah, that's just been delightful. I mean, if I'm the Denver Nuggets, I'm angry at the fact that Chris Paul was sitting with 1 minute remaining in the game, and he's signing his uniform and giving it to a young fan. That's a memory that the fans will enjoy forever. But I think on the other side of the coin, I think that the Nuggets are going to benefit from the home cooking in the same vein that the Suns did.
And they're also going to benefit from the altitude, which is always something for out of area teams to adjust to when they play in Denver. So there's that as well. Denver is the one city that seriously has a great disadvantage for away teams. When it comes to baseball, you're always going to target bats going up a pitcher in Denver, right? You don't want to own a Denver pitcher in your fantasy. Colorado Rockies, you just want to go against it, but you don't want to go for them. So this game tomorrow night, Suns Nuggets, I think the Nuggets win this one, okay? But I do think it's a high scoring game. 223 though, will it be this high scoring of a game if it doesn't go into an overtime round?
For some reason, I get those Nuggets Blazers vibes from round 1. I think they went into double overtime when Lillard dropped 55.
Yeah.
I think that this one could go overtime. Well, at least
So if
one.
it does, then we have a much better chance of betting the over at Bovada for 223. And we're both going with the Nuggets, taking the home win, getting in the cooking that they need to be doing. Scoop, I mean, I can't believe we're at this point of the exercise already where we're looking at teams. We're starting to hear some interesting conversations about trades already.
Yes.
We'll talk about Kemba Walker. Am I correct?
Yeah, Kemba wants out. And it's a situation where if you're the Celtics, who are now under new ownership or under new management, you can either look at the sign and trade market, whether it's you wait until free agency and you look at a situation where, you know, you look at Kelly Oubre, for example, who was a free agent and will command a certain a bevy of money, and the Boston Celtics would be a fit for him. So if you look at that, I know Damian Lillard, if Portland was looking to move him, I think Lillard would be a good fit next to Jason Tatum and Moore. You look at the New York Knicks in that vein too. Kemba's from New York City by way of the Bronx. So I think there's a situation where just because he wants out doesn't mean they have to move him right away. This is
course.
That could drag into the trading deadline the following season. A prime example of this is Anthony Davis. When he wanted out of the New Orleans situation, this dragged out into after the trade deadline into the next. So Boston's going to be looking to rebuild in a short term. To
Alex Porter says Kemba is looking to be the man somewhere, and he would look great in a Knicks jersey.
He would. I mean, I know that the Knicks are in the market for a point guard. I know that trading deadline, Lonzo Ball was on their radar, as well as the Chicago Bulls. The Los Angeles Lakers, as Derek in the city said, could use a solid point guard.
Could.
I know that when LeBron was in 2019, Kemba Walker was one guy that was on the Lakers' radar. They ended up, making other arrangements there. So it's a lot to be considered there. But free agency is going to be interesting.
It is.
Lonzo Ball is somebody you need to be paying attention to.
Yeah, because I think he's going to get big money to go somewhere. Where do you think is the perfect fit?
The Chicago Bulls.
I like it. A backcourt of Kemba and D Rose could get the Knicks over the hump in the East. I mean, they got so close this season. It was so exciting. Way better than anybody expected. Kemba to the Heat, Nick says. But this is the time where the conversations start. We're also going to hear a million people tell us that LeBron is old, okay? That is not going to be relevant next season after a full year's rest, right? The regular season's rest. Remembering that the Lakers had 73 rest days between the bubble and the start of the new season. I just think we're still paying the price of it. We've seen a lot of injuries. We've seen injuries linger. I think we're still paying a price for how we have just been watching a different schedule game, but these players have been living and playing in a different schedule.
72 games in a condensed schedule. I feel like these playoffs are even shorter now.
Yeah.
Usually could last like 2.5 weeks on a best of 7 series. I think that these are going quicker because you got to get to the draft on July 29th, free agency August 2nd. And don't forget the Olympics are coming up. So there's a lot going on. And I feel like this summer going into the fall will be the first real rest that these guys have had in 2 seasons.
I agree. And also it's going to be the first time in 2 seasons where they're looking forward to going back to the regular season where things will be like arenas will be filled with fans. It will be that same energy that they were used to. And, Scoop, we may see it kind of turn back the hands of time on some of these players because we know that athletes are creatures of habit. And their habit has been completely thrown off over the past 1.5, 2 years. And next season is going to be the first time where they're entering in. It's funny, but with some of the stadiums in baseball having different amounts of fans, same in football, same in basketball, the players are adjusting to a totally different element game by game, which is like a whole nother level of unfair, like throwing the wrench in it. It's going to be really cool to see how different they feel when they walk out onto full courts next season.
I'm on the same page with you. Lisa, tell me about your YouTube series that you're doing for 30 days.
So this has been fun. Friends of mine put together 30 very unique questions, and it's giving me a chance to just really learn to properly use the YouTube live feature and also engage. And, from a question, you start making a lot of really good conversation. phobias. Of course, we learned that a lot of people are afraid of spiders. A lot of people are afraid of heights. But it's just been a great way to engage. And I've been doing it 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, and then shorter ones on the weekend. But it's 30 days straight. Like when I committed to this, I did not stop and think like every day is 30 days, but it's been a ton of fun, a lot of really good engagement. And I'm going to be editing out some little snippets to share on social media after it's done. So if you don't have time to watch all of them, you'll get your snippets out there.
Favorite interview so far?
Question or interview?
Question, my fault.
This was, I will have to say, I make the weekends ones more fun. Friday night was favorite cheesy pickup line. And I learned so many funny, cheesy, and like more like, you have different generations. Like one kid said like, are you Wi-Fi? Because I'm feeling a connection. That's like, like, so there was all these different generations give me, and they were all cheesy, amazing, fun pickup lines. So far, that one's been my favorite.
You know what my favorite pickup line is? Baby, you must be jammed because jelly don't shake like that.
I thought you were going to say, your legs must be tired because you've been running through my dreams all day.
I feel like my father said that.
There were some great ones, but it was a lot of fun. Well, Scoop, we got this again next week. I know we'll be talking this week. We are taking for tonight, everybody. Get out there and have some fun at Bovada with my promo code Lisa250BV. Reluctantly, we're taking the Bucks and the over. Is that what we're feeling? You're feeling? I'm so torn because I just don't think the Bucks can do it, but this is the only opportunity I think they have to win.
Regis Philbin, final answer.
As I scratch my head, I mean, if they don't win this one, they can't win any. I still kind of feel like the Nets might sweep. So I'm going to stick with the Nets. You go with the Bucks. No more neutral in this room.
We'll go with it. We don't have the Charles Barkley guarantee button. But
we don't have the Charles Barkley guarantee, because you know how that works out. But have a great night, everybody. Scoop, thanks for coming on. As always, thanks for following right here at Bovada. Don't forget to share with your friends. Get them to follow along as well. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, man.